if you wish to not be recorded, you may go off screen, mute your camera. Oh, Chris is here, good.
Well, I'll take care of the people coming in, Jim, if you
Okay,
want to go ahead and start. Yeah.
So as Kathy was saying, it was interesting because when people submitted questions, there were a lot of the same questions being asked, and so I was kind of able to distill them down. The first question, and I promised Ava she could go first in the last roundtable. I had a big fat post-it note on my book to say Ava goes first because she was robbed at the last roundtable. And Ava, I believe you were asking a question about directing, but I'm going to start with the question that you submitted the other day, which is, and many people had this, Melissa and Heidi, radiating on Zoom. How are we going to be radiating, receiving while online? And more importantly, how is this concept to be conveyed to new students of the technique, and more particularly young students? So that's the first question on the table, and I opened it up for comment. Yes, Heidi, you're correct. That is radiating with the little r, because qualities of movement is a slightly different animal. And maybe that is part of the answer, is that it might be good to start with the four brothers, Jim, start with the qualities of movement and start with radiating with a capital R. I have some things to say, but I thought we would open it up to the floor first. Anybody raising their hands? I can still see all of you, which is great. Yes, Lionel, please jump in.
Yeah, Kathy and I actually taught radiating and receiving a while back. Excuse me. And I used that exercise from To the Actor. And of course, I don't have my book in front of me because I met the neighbors where I have Wi-Fi. But if you start with that simple exercise of just raise your arm, lower it. And then, you've already found ideal center. And then just imagine that movement begins in the actor's ideal center, and you send the movement out using your energy body and follow it, and then continue that movement just up through the sky. And then allow the energy body to lower, right? And then you build from that to different parts of the body, and then send the whole body. And so then imagine that you send yourself to an object across the room, and when you feel that your energy body has reached it, you follow it physically. And then into a walk. Does that make sense?
It
I
does.
see a couple of heads nodding. Good. Jim, did you want to add to that?
I think one of the things that we're facing is how are they to radiate and receive through a camera, which of course for some of us that's not a new concept, right? If we're doing film work, then we know what that could entail. For opera singers last spring, it was a disaster. You know, they learned, and we had to come up with all kinds of tricks to get them to do that. Does anybody else want to jump on that? Yeah, Melissa, oh.
Right. Hi, everybody. I think the concern that I have, because I have worked with this, is what Jim just said, which is two people working together. I know it can be done, but what's interesting, the switch, is that you're not looking in each other's eyes. Instead, even if you go to the breakout rooms, and there are two of you in a breakout room, you're looking at their face. So we're doing the same thing that we always do, which is studying, looking for everything that's happening while we're radiating. But we don't have the eye contact, because if we do this, we're no longer looking at the person. So I think maybe that has helped in classwork that I've done, is just acknowledging that one of the senses it's not even gone, it's just different. It's just different. You can't look eye to eye, but you can still look. And then if it's combined with movement, then I feel like you feel that rush of success that we have when we radiate and receive, and we see that our partner has received. So if it's just you and one other person and you are radiating and you allow for any kind of mirror movement, then you feel like, oh, it's not just mimicry because I am also radiating. Maybe, I don't know. That's what I've been working with. I think it's such an important concept of our technique that I'm very much looking forward to working on it in the fundamentals class in the fall, online.
Rich, why don't we have you go next and then Heidi?
Thanks. Yeah, I've been playing around with this in a class that I'm teaching right now, which has been, it's been a Meisner-based class, but I've been introducing some Chekhov concepts, specifically radiating, because so many people do get hung up on the eye contact thing. And I've played around with two different ideas. One was that you can make your screen very small and just have your partner pinned, right? And then bring it to the top of your screen so that it's just underneath the camera, and you can come close to looking in their eyes and being close to, and looking close to the camera at least. And that seemed to help. And then as we've been getting into scene work, the students tend to get distracted by everything else in the room, and they're not really connecting to each other. And I had two of them pick up their phones or laptops, whatever they were using for their camera. And as soon as they had to do that, their focus just went right to each other. And explaining it as a way of like, even we're having a conversation and we're radiating, we're sending and receiving to each other, and making sure, even if we're not making eye contact, that I'm making sure I see your head nodding, Melissa, I see that you're receiving me, right? So, I mean, that's the concept, and it's possible through the screen.
Heidi? You're very soft, Heidi. It's kind of hard to hear.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
Is that better? A little
That's
bit?
great. That's
Oh,
good.
great. Okay. There we go. I'll use my outside voice. I think what Lionel was talking about is a great way to start, because, and I'm totally with you, Rich, with the class that I taught in the spring. We tried that very much. And I tried as much as I could to just do this when my students were doing work that was really vulnerable, so that they felt like I was really with them, even though I couldn't really see all that they were doing because I wasn't looking down here. But I like the idea of using that exercise Lionel was referencing to get them by themselves to feel that energy body moving and then following it. Because I think if we start there, this is not going to be as foreign. So I really appreciate Lionel reminding me anyway of that exercise, because that's going to be really helpful.
This kind of oh yes, Anne, please go ahead.
Mine's from my younger students in elementary school. In the spring, when we were working remotely, they used to love to play that group count game where you stand in a circle shoulder to shoulder, and you count as high as you can without two people speaking at the same time. We turned our cameras off, and they really focused on receiving and radiating for that game. They felt that palpably, and I thought they would give up, or that it wouldn't, but they sought that connection very clearly just with that one little game. And we talked about the radiating and receiving that way.
Great, Melissa, and then I want to go segue into the next question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I just want to ask Anne for clarification of the number game. And so Anne, could you put it in the chat? We don't have to spend time now.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other question was, and this is part and parcel to the idea of radiating and receiving through a camera, is, our go-to for teaching many concepts, not the least of which is the Four Brothers, is the ball toss, and how we're adapting that very fundamental exercise to an online environment. Almost everybody asks that question.
Heidi has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, didn't see. Heidi, go ahead.
I just wanted to acknowledge Melissa Lusher because I use.
Heidi, louder.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to acknowledge Melissa Lusher because I used the throw the snap, which was your warm up through the camera. And boy, oh boy, did that work. Because I was really missing tossing those balls. But and I think Jen Tuttle was talking about that too in our last roundtable, how she used throwing or tossing the snap. So thank you, Melissa.
It could be a clap too. That.
Does the snap, how do you say the name, Melissa L? How do you do that?
I have no idea how she does that. The original game was when we were in person was that I would look at you and throw you the snap. I don't know. I assume you might have to say the name, Heidi, because you can't tell who you're looking at on Zoom. I don't know.
Got it. So the name isn't involved.
Yeah.
Something to experiment with. More comment. I mean, we're still talking about radiating and receiving, but now more specifically to the ball, the exercise, the battery of exercises known as the tossing of the balls. The other comments I'm looking, everybody's writing or nodding.
I just have something, Jim. If you want to go back to the first teachers roundtable that we had back in, I don't know, the beginning of June, it seems like forever now. Jen Tuttle had a good suggestion for the ball game. And I think that if people go back and if you don't have the YouTube link to that, I'll try and figure out how to put it in the chat room while I'm still doing Zoom.
But it is on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, but the link to the YouTube channel.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I will try and figure out how to do that while I am on this Zoom session, so I don't click everybody out of it or anything. But there's some very good discussion of how to replicate ball games on Zoom.
And Jim, you said you had some thoughts on radiating.
I do. In fact, there was a question posed to now. What did you do? One of the things that worked really successfully, and I think I mentioned this at the last roundtable, is to have an image just beyond the camera, so that if I'm engaged in some kind of aria work, which is a solo activity, really, right? That the radiating and receiving from some kind of image that they infuse with life, that they somehow cause this image to resonate in front of them, seemed to really work. I was kind of surprised because that gets a little esoteric for 21-year-olds. And so this idea that I can radiate and receive from imagery really, and it gave them something to do. Like I can go online and look for something that can be my target, something that will receive and radiate back. We did not do any scene work at the end of the semester. It was all solo work just because we had to turn on a dime, right? So this is the easiest way for me to connect with each of them. A lot of work, meeting with each of them, but it did seem to work. It worked less when I did have another student join the coaching and they were trying to somehow work off of each other in the Zoom. So that was my experience. I'm eager to try out more stuff in the fall. Let's see. Heidi has listed. Thank you, Heidi. Heidi, is that our YouTube thing? Oh, thank you so much. Kathy, she did it.
Oh.
And then, can you give me an example?
Thank you.
Yeah. Jesse, one of the images was a gargoyle. And we found that the eyes peering out from this effigy really, really worked. You know, Handel, we often use demonic figures for radiating and receiving. And certainly the ghost exercise is really fantastic for that in person. But when you don't have that, the gargoyle really worked. Like the gargoyle becomes your virtual background? No, it becomes an image on a piece of paper that hovers above the camera, beyond the laptop or phone. And some of them did have it on the screen though. Some had animated. A couple of them had animated things that they found that gave some kind of pulsing response. Brad, please.
Yeah, so as part of this giving and radiating and receiving discussion, I do wonder if there's possibilities, and I haven't done this because I didn't teach a performance class last spring over Zoom, and it's certainly possible that I will coming up in the fall. I do wonder if that, in terms of ensemble building, the initial sort of exploration that we tended to do as a whole group with Mark on like the first day that everyone got there, might work through Zoom, this sort of whole group together, and then radiating and receiving to each other, and then making a common decision to start doing X, Y, or Z. When we were all in person, it was walking or jogging or what have you, laying down, sitting up. But I do wonder if that can be adapted to more Zoom-friendly scenarios. Like making sure, starting with Ideal Center, making sure everyone is radiating, receiving to the whole group, but then without a leader, we collectively make a decision to pick up a pencil or do whatever we decide, right? So I think that might be an exploration that has the ability to transfer, I'm not going to say seamlessly, but effectively to Zoom.
Chris, I wondered about that, about raising, lowering the ring. Yeah. Let's see, who, Melinda. Oh, Melinda, you're still muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did an exercise with students that's similar. It was unison movement. They knew a warm-up routine. And it was really interesting because they didn't know, we move as a group, but wait for the group impulse to move. We know what we're going to do next, but they would have to radiate to send energy into their computer so that people would know when we were going to move as a group. So unison movement seemed to help with radiating for me.
And Jeanette?
Kind of to piggyback off of Brad and Melinda, I learned an exercise earlier in the summer and then was able to utilize it in like a workshop that I did in June. And it established like a few different physical things to do on Zoom connected to theater, like, and they were all prompted, and I gave the prompts. So for example, one would just be off stage right, and everyone would leave their screen off to the right, or trap door, and people would fall off the screen. And there were probably about, I want to say 10 different prompts. You know, they were kind of for all age groups. So some of them were kind of silly, like close up and extreme close up, you know, and it's like fun stuff. I wonder if that might be transferable, like Melinda and Brad are talking about, if I'm not prompting them, but that in some way they were sort of moved. Once you've established all of them and they've kind of learned them, maybe it takes a couple of classes, but that there would be a way as an ensemble to sort of move through them almost without speaking, if that makes sense. I don't know. Just a thought that came to mind.
There's an exercise that when Lion and I were teaching to the new people, the recruit class earlier, I did an exercise in receiving that I'm wondering if wouldn't work. It would take too long to explain, but I think it works well with Zoom because you can have everyone else on screen and this other person, the other person off screen entering on as though they're coming on stage and receiving an audience. If you're interested in that exercise, put it in the chat and I will make sure I email it to you.
This is a really good segue to number 4, which is talking about building ensemble online and ensemble building exercises. We've already started to touch on that. That was Sarah K and Melissa O. Roxanne, welcome. You had mentioned, you had asked the question about creating the feeling of entirety, the feeling of the whole when it comes to the 4 brothers. Does anybody want to riff on that?
I'll jump in.
Oh, do it, Lionel.
Yeah, I think that we can work on a feeling of the whole with our bodies, right? So that it might begin with a simple movement and then hold, and now get an image of your body in the whole, in the space. A feeling of the whole of your body, where it begins, where it ends, from head to toe. And when you have that, move on, right? And then hold again. And once again, get that feeling of the whole of your body so that you're aware of it fully. So that's a way to begin, I think.
Let's see, I'm looking to see. I now have 2 screens because we have so many people.
Heidi has, oh, she's clapping, I guess.
Oh, Heidi's clapping, yes. Excellent. I can keep going. One of the things that connects to the feeling of entirety, feeling of the whole, and certainly this question of ensemble is connected part and parcel to the work environment that a student finds himself in. And this notion that, you know, a lot of them working in their family dining room with their mother watching them while they're working. You know, I mean, as singers, we were giving lessons to students in closets because they were trying to hide and find a space where they could concentrate. Has anybody had are there any tips that anybody has? Any success stories in enhancing concentration, dealing with pets, barking during a jury? It was quite a semester, Brad.
It's not I don't really have a success story with it, but just off the top of my head, a thing that I've had to talk students through before is when you cross the threshold, like you have to be truthful. You have to be honest with yourself, right? And actually cross the threshold, right? Actually say, yeah, I'm here for the work and whatever happens, happens, and I'm not going to let it throw me off. Now that's obviously under our current circumstances, easier said than done. But I don't know, I think for me, that's where it has to, that's my first instinct as to where it would start from, where it would emanate from.
Rich, how do you get that nifty little hand up thing? How do you do that?
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine my life body first, and I follow suit. And then I radiate through the computer and it does it for me.
Wow.
No,
okay.
if you click on the participants link or and open up that panel, there's a little raise hand button.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll have Rich speak and then Lionel.
Now I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
Jesse also has her hand up too.
What were we just saying? I lost my train of
talking about
space.
Crossing the threshold in space.
Yes. One thing I had to do with my students was actually, I spent a good part of the first class just looking at their spaces. What do you have to work with? What can you work with? And then also, as artists, we have to empower ourselves to claim our space and say, I need this space for this amount of time when I'm working. And that's kind of how we all have to work. Even pre-COVID, you know, I have to tell my wife, I know I'm talking to myself, don't come in the room. And I feel like once students were able to do that with their families, with their roommates, whatever, that they could claim a space for a couple of hours, you know, every Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever, that could be theirs.
That's the hard part. Jesse?
It's really hard. Jesse, sorry, Kathy.
I was just going to say, and I know this might sound a little esoteric, but I've actually had some pretty crazy stuff go down in the past couple of weeks, and I've started meditating. And there are so many beautiful meditations online. There's a really wonderful one that's a 10-minute meditation about clarity and focus. And it has you visualize a crystal, and the crystal is foggy, and you clear up the crystal, and I'm maybe just because I so desperately need something to focus on, having that even 10-minute meditation before I start something makes me feel more like I'm in control of my life, and that I have a say in my environment, even though that's seems to be slipping further and further away. But and I know that sounds a little bonkers, but I have found such peace in that in the past couple of weeks. And maybe something that, you know, the students, as part of maybe even talking about that, just having even a guided meditation, which we do a lot in Chekhov, of, you know, just a 10-minute brief, even maybe a 5 minutes of like just clarity and focus, really creating this bubble of space for ourselves, might help focus everybody in a little bit more.
Lionel, and then Alyssa. Oh.
Hi. Just two things. One, I want to go back to the feeling of the whole. The other thing, and Jim, I think you were saying it, that you start to get a feeling of the whole of the space using the architecture in the room in which you find yourself working, so that you can explore the space. You know, in the walking exercises, I can remember being coached, as you pass something, take it with you and build, and then take that wall with you, and then take that wall with you until you get the whole room, and that you can stand, close your eyes, and then can you visualize the room as if you were turning around in it, right? So that you're building a feeling of the whole. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten the second thing. What else were we talking about?
Mindfulness, maybe?
Meditation, we were talking, going backwards from meditation, it was into concentration within your own space, challenges, obstacles with space.
Thank you. Word obstacles in it. You know, we have all these things going on. One of my students in the spring, she was doing a monologue and her dog jumped into her lap.
You went mute all of a sudden, Lionel.
Sorry, I was using the space bar to unmute myself. Let me get my microphone. So this student of mine was doing a monologue live on Zoom, well, on Teams, because that's what we use. And her dog jumps in her lap. And instead of ignoring it or letting it frazzle her, she picked up the dog like this and delivered the monologue to the dog. And she suddenly had a receiver. But, you know, I go back to the thing about Stanislavski, where he says, if something happens on stage, you can't ignore it. You can't pretend it didn't happen. The audience knows it happened. Right. So incorporate it.
Melissa, oh.
Thank you. I just wanted to say concentration, which is what Lionel was just talking about, the specificity of concentration in a space, to really look at it anew, to say, yes, I know this is your bedroom or your living room or wherever it is, but to find the specifics of it. And then this idea of expansion, to make a place your studio, because many of the spaces are small. So to begin coaching, expanding your space and your imagination, seeing beyond the walls, seeing beyond the furniture, so that you feel that you have a bigger energy space, which also, again, this is Lionel, Kathy, Mark, this is every wonderful teacher. Painting a space from your ideal center with your energy improves the atmosphere of the space so much, so that you are no longer, it's part of the crossing of the threshold for me in my living room when I'm teaching or taking a class. It doesn't feel like my living room if I have taken the time. I think it's Kathy who always says that paint, but I think it's also Lionel. To really, once you've noticed the space, expanded the space, and then radiated your energy into it, it becomes a magical studio. It just becomes that. But you have to coach students through it, because otherwise they're laying back on their pillows on their bed. That was it.
Thanks. It's actually a really good segue into, oh wait, somebody had a hand up. Wait, where'd you go? Who's got their hand up?
I can't see everybody.
Geraldo, take the floor.
Yep.
The mic is yours.
Great. So I have two things. One thing I want to also throw out there in painting the space or claiming the space and taking the space is using breath as well. Even if it's a small space, just like radiating from the ideal center, is filling the space with as much breath as they can, so it also feels like their body's expanding into it, or maybe they're claiming it a little bit more. Audible breath is really great for other students to, again, kind of connect their experience to what's happening with the participant who's breathing, because it gets us all in sync and we don't have to physically be in the space to be able to connect to that audible sound. And then it begins to activate our own breath as well. So that helps feeling connected and a sense of the whole. And then internally, it helps us kind of figure out what our space is and where it is. And then second, a smaller version of crossing the threshold. We do this a lot in, I've seen intimacy directors do it as well as myself in fight work. Even if you're in a small space, much like crossing the threshold, identifying the line or the area that starts the workable space. So if you're just walking into your bedroom, doing something like acknowledging the literal door jamb of the threshold, or closing the door to start work, that in your body and your head says, oh, now it's work time. And it helps us remove or differentiate other time to work time. Or something as simple as touching a wall or a doorknob or a pillow or something, wherever you're going to be, just taking a second to breathe into, this is the physical thing that I'm in, that means it's work time. And then your brain goes shift into, I acknowledge that this is work time and everything else is distracted, and I don't need it anymore. And then whenever you're done, just doing that acknowledgement again, and it taps you out just like crossing out of the threshold. So rather than going through the different exercises we have, something simple like that maybe could help. That's what I got.
Thank you. This is a great segue into another question that came up about atmosphere and the importance of atmosphere as it relates to the space. We've already touched on it, but does anybody want to expand on the concept of atmosphere as it relates to the working environment? Food for thought. Yeah, Melinda, please.
So Melissa, you mentioned that exercise about the space in the roundtable, I think in the spring, and I borrowed it from you and totally using it at the beginning of each of my classes because I'm teaching one online class this summer. And something I add to it is walking the perimeter of your space. And as you walk around your space, transforming in whatever way you need to, the space that you're in, be it your bedroom, your living room, your bathroom, or your kitchen, into your studio or your version of a studio. So I try to leave space for them to put that place where they want to be. And just talking now, I'm thinking about a feeling of ease and thinking of how can, this is another question, but how can we help transform that room that they're in into a studio, but into a space that is full of a feeling of ease. Because I know right now I'm working with students and they, some days they have more ease and some days they don't, with what's going on in the world. So how can that atmosphere of a feeling of ease be set up as well?
Yeah, that actually is the very next question, Melinda. It was yours regarding ease. And other people have asked it. Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Oh.
Unmute yourself, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, you're still muted.
what I've been working with a feeling of ease online is I start with the qualities of movement, and then when we're in flow, I'm finding that that is a lovely place to flow with the feeling of ease, so that the students are really getting this in their body and in their molecules and waking up all of their body with it and feeling the atmosphere in the feeling of ease. It seems to have been a pretty easy way to slip into that in my experience.
Okay.
Brad.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that makes sense. And I think something that we'll probably have to work with students on is, my guess is that because of not being able to be in person in all likelihood, they're going to feel like they need to muscle it to the camera more. You know what I mean? They're going to feel like they are obligated to like act the crap out of it because they can't be in person anymore, or for the moment. And I think that is really, really vital, that we have to, as much as we can, coach them in the opposite way, right? To find that feeling of ease, whether it be through flowing. I think blocking the perimeter and claiming the space as your own studio is a lovely way to instill that as well, in all likelihood. And I feel like as the ensemble online in each of these situations grows, that can probably be more easily accomplished. But I do see that sort of like I must power through it so people in Ontario get what I am acting, right? Oh, I almost made Lionel do a spit take. So mark that off on your bingo card. But yeah, I think that's something that we'll definitely encounter. And I like both of those ideas for encountering it. Yeah, that's it.
Devin.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to share an exercise that helped me, that I learned from Rena Pauli at Chekhov Canada during the beginning of the shutdown. And one of her first classes, she asked us all to envision our rooms, or the places where we had set up our Zoom meetings, as our own personal art museums. And we spent some time walking around in the art museum and thinking of every object in our room as specifically placed in here, specifically curated in here for a purpose. And it gave every tiny thing in the room much more meaning, and allowing you to focus on something like a leaf on a plant. That type of concentration and focus on something so small for a while, that put everybody at the beginning of the class in a feeling of ease. And it's something that I use now when I'm having to do monologues and things in my bedroom.
That's a great idea for a concentration exercise in and of itself.
Yeah.
And Jeanette, and then Brad.
Yeah, I love that, Bevan. That's great. And it reminded me of an exercise that I've only completed module 1, so I don't know how equipped I've ever felt when I jump in, but I just jump. But I did something sort of similar, I think, to what Bevan was just describing, in that I had everybody imagine that it was like Halloween night or whatever, right? And I kind of took them through, not as well as Kathy and all those that did that blind exercise with the blind. I mean, that was astounding, and I'll never forget that. But it was, we're on Zoom, and I kind of took everybody through this little meditation of like, imagine it's Halloween night and da-da-da-da. And then I put them into breakout rooms, and I had them play a little game where they had to go through the alphabet, and I play this with my 6-year-old son, where my first sentence has to start with A, and the next person starts with B, and they had to stay in the atmosphere that I created for them, I suppose, and then have this sort of fun conversation along the alphabet, if that makes sense. And I think it sort of worked. I think I could probably tweak it, but.
Yeah. That just to, Anjanette, that was the house exercise, not the Zoom, and not the blind exercise. We had 2 of them. And I remember your class with the house exercise because you guys were freaked out. That's great.
Brad.
Yeah, I wonder, and things that are being said by Bevan and Anjanette make me wonder if there's not a way into a feeling of ease in creating the studio for the student wherever they are through what I learned as the palace exploration, right? If they're exploring their room of laughter, or they're exploring their room of music, or whatever. But just one of the rooms is their room of whatever term you want to give their acting studio, right? Their room of exploration, their room of learning. And that, as Bevan says, allows them to curate and cultivate what their ideal space for learning and taking things in is for them each individually, right? And they don't have to worry about it conforming to what anyone else thinks that it should be, right? So I do wonder if that is a way into.
Nice.
I'm looking to see if we have any hands up.
Lionel had his hand up.
Oh, Lionel, sorry.
Unmute Lionel.
A couple of things. I think if we use that concept of when you cross the threshold, or even before you cross the threshold, that you gaze across the threshold, and what you see over there on the other side is a place where art happens, right? So that we engage the imagination and then allow it to begin to draw you. So it's receiving you, and while you're receiving it. And then when the impulse happens, you bring your artistic self, your higher ego with you over the threshold, and you step into an artistic space where you are an artist. That will help transform your bedroom. Antoinette was talking about atmosphere exercises. One of the things I did when I was teaching in Toronto, Rena and I teach at U of T, the University of Toronto. And it's this big old, like imagine Harvard in Toronto, this Ivy League kind of place. And we went out into the street, and it's a fairly busy street where we were, and just listened. And we talked about what's the atmosphere. And then we went onto the inside of the campus in the quad area, and how is the atmosphere transformed? Right, it was all trees and park benches and birds, and instead of trucks and traffic and people on bicycles going really fast. And then when we went back in the studio, I had them recreate one of those atmospheres for themselves. So they can do that if they're at Zoom. They can go in their backyard and bring that atmosphere back into their room, right? Or they can go into their front yard in the street and bring that atmosphere in, or even go from one room to another in the house. And what is the different atmosphere that they could recreate then in their imagination in the space, or with their imagination in the space where they're actually doing the work?
Kathy?
Lionel, I want to go back to, jump back one discussion a little bit. And this is the idea of creating the space and having ease in the space. Couldn't we do the artist walk on Zoom and have them each in their own space do that? Wouldn't that work, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because then we're each in our, I don't know if everyone was taught the artist walk though.
The march, you mean?
The march, yes.
Yeah, I'll describe it if
go
you
ahead and
want.
describe it, because I think it would really work.
Yeah, so you're walking through the space, and then, and I'll put this in the chat, the side coach, says that the line, and the students all respond. So it's, I am a creative artist. I have the power to radiate. Raising my arms in the air, I soar above the earth. Lowering my arms, I continue to soar. I am a creative artist. And then that's usually followed by a woo, from my students. So I'll type that into the chat now. And so you know, it's from The Actor is the Theater, which is in the archives. And a longer version is in Leonard Petit's book.
Yeah. I just think it's a wonderful way of creating what we've been talking about, which is that space in which to work. And it may work for some students, it may not, but it seems to me that we could all do it together on Zoom as we're all in our spaces, and that would help create some of that ensemble, but also help create that space in which to work. Just an idea.
I did it in the spring. I would have them cross the threshold, then do the artist statement, or whatever it's called, artist march. And then go into staccato legato. We did that every class, and it just got them into a good headspace. And I don't see why you couldn't do that on Zoom. I mean, they might be self-conscious about like where they are if they're at home and they're self-conscious, and so you're gonna have that battle. But I think some of these things that you're talking about that everyone's been sharing will kind of help with some of that self-consciousness, you know, or go out in the yard. Like if you got to do this in the yard, then if you got to do this in the bathroom, then this is, you know, figuring out a space that can be yours for that short period of time. Yeah.
One thing I found that helped, and it was the student's idea, not mine. She was originally soprano, was struggling with, I'm at home, my family, and so forth. But then she remembered that she used to play in that room. It was her childhood bedroom. And she says, if I go into this space with the idea that I'm going to be playing, like if I was playing house or playing with Legos or playing with, that seemed to help as well. It's going to be interesting because I think I'm beginning to realize we're going to probably need to do one of these like right after Thanksgiving to see what we all did. It's going to be, I think, more important even then. We're approaching the hour, but there's one question that a lot of people had, and that was about teaching scene study online and engaging in some kind of activity beyond just the monologue. I'm directing 12th Night this fall, so I will pick up my pen and I'm taking notes on this because I have some ideas, but they are very, very preliminary. And does anybody want to jump into this? Oh, Rich, please. Rich with his raised hand.
Yeah, I took a dive with my class and assigned scenes that they're working on right now. And I edited the scenes down so that I took away any indication that they were sharing the space, if that makes sense. So we weren't gonna pretend that they were in the same room. The scene has to be a scene where they are communicating through this medium of Zoom or FaceTime or what have you. So for instance, one of the scenes I assigned is the opening scene from Rabbit Hole between the two sisters, right? Mm. And so I took out all the references to her, like the sister eating the food, right? Or saying, can I have this? Because they're not in the same space. But just those minor cuts, suddenly it's two people still connecting and radiating, responding, you know. But yeah, I felt like we have to embrace the medium through which we're communicating now, because we can't pretend that we're in the same space.
Interesting. Very cool. I'm looking for raised hands.
Don't see one.
Yes. Oh, Kathy, did you have your hand up?
No, I was scratching my face, which I'm allowed to do because I haven't been out of this place all day today.
You are. Lionel, then Jesse.
Yes, my ATHA colleague Hillary Buke sent me a scene study emergency kit, and it's full of scenes written for Zoom. Oh, yeah, so I could send it to Jim, and maybe Jim, you could share it. Would that work?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will do that right now.
Thank you.
Just looking for it. I have the link, and you can download the PDF. So I'll just put it in the chat.
Oh.
Thank you, Ava.
Jesse, you're up.
So I have the, I don't know how many else you were talking about directing 12th night. So Jim, are you directing 12th night in person, like face to face, or you're directing it completely online?
Completely online.
Okay, so I'm in a situation where, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but I just got hired at Coker University in South Carolina. So, as of the second, I'm directing All in the Timing, David Ives, right? And I'm trying to figure out, like, as of the second, the university has said we're still going face to face. So enforcing social distancing while still directing the piece. And I'm kind of like playing around with exactly what you were talking about, Rich. And I think that's so smart of like, you know, one of the scenes in All of the Timing is the Philadelphia where they're at the restaurant, but do they have to be at the same restaurant? I mean, could they not be, you know, I just sat down at this table, or does it need to be a 6-foot table if that's just what we create? I mean, is anybody else having to deal with this whole directing face-to-face thing, yet still enforcing social distancing at the same time?
We have many people nodding and raising hands. Yes.
Okay. I think that I would also really love, maybe we have like a midterm town hall where we're like, this worked really great. This sucked. Don't do this. You know, that might be really great because right now it feels like I can't wait to see this, these scenes. But I feel like there's also there's so much in there too of like, you know, the rights to change the words in order to be able to do that. Are we concerning ourselves with that? Like with the, I mean, for scene study, it's something entirely different. You don't have to worry about rights. But for performance, is anybody else like hit up against, you know, rights and things? This might be a bigger discussion. Sorry.
I can talk to this like something that I'm dealing with right now. I'm directing Radium Girls, and we had envisioned it as like an epic format, 30+ actors, expose docudrama, and with realistic costumes and lots of special effects. And now we have to do it in this COVID world. So anybody that's worked with me will know that like my focus is always, if you can't fix it, feature it. So I'm blowing all of our last year's work up, and I'm gonna stage it on stage, and I'm taping out 9 Zoom squares on the floor. You get your box, everybody gets a box, because I don't know, truthfully, if we're going to end up being able to produce it live, because it doesn't open until the middle of October. And I was directing a production of Laramie Project that we had to shut down a week before opening because of COVID, and my students can't lose another show. And as a new faculty member, I can't have 2 failed productions on the tenure track line. I just need this to be a win. So we're gonna do this Zoom style formatting on the floor. We're going to focus on background projections and like digital set. And then we're also going to approach it more like Einstein on the Beach in representation in terms of the performance and stylize it. Sorry, I see your hand up, Melissa.
Can we do Lionel? Sorry, the latency is fun, isn't it? Lionel had his hand up, Melissa. Can we hear from him really quickly? And then
this is just a response to Alicia to say your first production was not a failed production. It had to stop because of the pandemic. Yes. I just wanted to say that.
And
thank you. That's very
ever.
Very well said. It's true. We have to change our mindset. Don't get me started about Mikado. Lionel, you're up. Oh, you're still muted, sir.
Still muted.
I've again forgotten what I'm going to say, what I was going to say.
One of the things I wanted to
put my hand back up.
Let me finish then. So with those 9 Zoom boxes, we're gonna work and we're gonna block it. And each student will have their props and their costume and like something in their space. And we're gonna block it live with masks. And then if, like I suspect, we are pivoted online, I'm sending them home with their props and their costume pieces and their little set piece and a green screen. And we're going to use the background projections that we designed and do it all online.
Yeah. I want to quickly mention that, you'll be getting information about our homecoming in October. Pretty excited about this, where we're going to be doing a Saturday, a whole day of classes. One of the things that I think, yeah, it's exciting. I think one of the things that we'll include then is another 1 hour roundtable. Yeah, we have yet to put the schedule together, and so we're in the process of that right now. And so maybe that's something that we can think about, because Jesse, I think you're right. I think October is probably the better time to do that, and November or December, but keep that on your radar. So Lionel, you're back.
Yeah, so you actually just said it. I was going to say, instead of American Thanksgiving, let's have a meeting after Canadian Thanksgiving,
yes. Yes.
Which is the second Tuesday of October, and we can do a check-in halfway through the semester.
I think that's a really, really good idea. Yeah, because we're going to have a lot to report, I imagine, and a lot of experimenting that's going to be taking place.
Yeah.
Let's see, did anybody have a hand up that I missed? If you do have your hand up, you might just want to go ahead and unmute yourself. We are at the hour. It's really, really very healing for me to see all of you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't realize how much I'm missing this until I do it. And so thank you for taking time out of what is going to be just the beginning of a very, very busy semester. And the nice thing is that we can always communicate with one another. If you think of something and want to reach out, do it. Don't hesitate. To Kathy, Lionel, me, any of the associate teachers. Melissa's on this call. Chris is here. I'm trying to think, who am I missing? Ava, of course. And I'm looking to see who else. Yeah. And so we're just as interested. So please reach out. Kathy, do you have parting words, Lionel?
The only parting words I have to say are that we will be sending out the information about the October homecoming, where we'll separate you into mods 2 and 3, rising mod 2s, and mod 3s, and also then for our alum, so that we don't get overcrowded in any one session. But we're really having fun planning it, so
it's cool.
Look forward to it a lot. And also, I think by next week, you should be able to go on our new website. Well, it's not maybe so new now, it was new in May, but the new dates for 2021, when we will hopefully be in person. But if not, we are also planning, doing our planning ahead of time for a virtual conference. But you will see the dates for 2021 and also for our 10th anniversary celebration, which it will still be. And also the celebration of Mark's life and career. So look for that stuff. It'll be coming in your email boxes pretty soon.
And just to let everyone know, at the annual general meeting for AFA, there's always a memorial for the people we've lost. And I did put his name in the chat.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you.
And closing remarks, it's just so lovely to see all your faces and hear your voices, and to share thoughts and ideas. So let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Well, that went well.
I think it did go well. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And GLMCC love, I love these things. So grateful. Yeah, we're getting good comments.
Oh, yeah.
I will send that exercise out to the people who requested it. I think it was good. And I think everybody is looking forward to homecoming. So that's great.
Yeah, I'm using that exercise. It's already on my notes for the syllabus.
Oh,
absolutely.
I'll work on Zoom. I really do. So I'll send it out to people. Oh, and I shouldn't be recording this. I should stop recording.
Oh, I stopped recording.
Okay.